let's kick things off with a bang. Nick's dad isn't doing well, so he and the warden are feeding Nick a day pass to say goodbye to Pops. Nick arrives at his father's funeral, unprepared for this reunion in such a sad setting, holding back tears. Anger still boiled in Nick. Facing everyone, he lashed out at Joey for neglecting Dad. Joey retorted, "Hadn't you stolen diamonds, Dad wouldn't be ill." The siblings refused to yield, sparking a fight. Surprisingly, Nick grabbed the cop's gun and pointed it at another. Nick said, "I really don't want to do this," and urged his younger brother to remove the cuffs. But then he flipped the script and told Joey to sit tight, shot out the cop car's tire, and zoomed off in Joey's ride like a renegade. Nearby cops sprung into action to chase him down, leaving Nick to floor it on the bumpy road of the graveyard as a train loomed ahead. In a split second, an utterly wild idea flashed through Nick's mind, and he ultimately succeeded in making his escape. The cops were left scratching their heads, thinking Nick had skipped over the border to Mexico. Nick secretly plotting to clear his name, working a room under alias across the street and enjoying a fancy breakfast. To keep the cops guessing, Nick wiped down the hotel room with a napkin to erase all fingerprints. He even left a goodbye note, took a deep breath, and climbed out the window like a ninja. Perched on the 23rd floor, looking down at the toy-like cars, some passers-by spotted Nick and rushed to call the cops. Soon, police and fire trucks swarmed the scene as officers set up a perimeter. Firefighters scrambled to inflate air cushions just in case Nick decided to dive, while spectators pulled out their phones to film the spectacle. An officer climbed up to the balcony to ask Nick what the deal was, but Nick only wanted to see Detective Mocha. He threatened that if Detective Mocha didn't show up in 30 minutes, he'd take the plunge. The officer spotted Nick's note and realized he was serious, so he reluctantly called Mocha. Mocha, on his day off, was dragged out of bed and rushed to the scene, grumbling all the way. Time as hell upon arrival at the hotel, Mocha briefly inquired about the situation, yet there were no identity documents belonging to Nick in the room, strangely enough. Not even a single fingerprint of his was found. As one officer urged Mocha to hurry, he tried to change the subject, asking if Nick needed family help. Nick responded, stating, "My parents are gone. I'm all alone now." Left with limited options, Mocha handed Nick a pack of smokes. He said, "Cigarettes are a man's best health companion. Maybe it'll snap you back to reality." But Nick was already zoned out, his earphones tuned into Joe's voice. Turns out, the brothers staged an act at the cemetery to help Nick escape and clear his name. Subtitles: Joey and his girlfriend Angie were on the rooftop of the jeweler, getting ready with the detonator installed. Angie nervously told Nick, "It's showtime. We need you to distract the cops." And just like that, Nick was about to step up for the jump off a building stunt. 3, 2, 1 with Joe's cue, the show was on. Meanwhile, Joey and Angie successfully infiltrated the vault, and Nick finally breathed a sigh of relief. Nick casually asked Mocha for a smoke, mentioning he had looked into him before. He heard that Mocha once negotiated for hostages for a whopping 68 hours. This guy is truly tenacious. It is precisely because of this that Nick figures Mocha's the right guy to help clear his name. Mocha sensed something was off with Nick and wanted to ask what happened. But Nick just handed the smoke over to Mocha and said, "Don't worry about saving me, I'm here to save you." Mocha hurriedly had his team run a fingerprint check just as Joey began his covert operation. Joey whipped out a skateboard and lay down while Angie tied him up securely. Joey then slid beneath the cameras and took a picture, sticking it over the lens. Angie was worried on the side about whether this idea would work. Joey jumped up with a confident look, solving the hallway surveillance issue with ease. But just then he spotted a temperature sensor in front of the vault. This sensor wasn't part of the plan, and Joey felt his heart race at the thought of taking a risk. Meanwhile, outside, the police finally uncovered Nick's identity through his fingerprints. They informed Mocha that the jewelry store Nick robbed was right across the street, and it clicked for him. Subtitles, Nick felt that he had been wronged and hoped Mocha could help clear his name. Learning that Sean was Nick's partner, Mocha quickly called him to explain the situation. Mocha asked Sean to figure out what might be going through Nick's mind, wondering if he would actually jump. Sean said Nick had nothing to lose and tossed a few folders into a gas barrel. They began copying the folders while the police reached out to the security company to assess the situation. Meanwhile, Nick was in a panic upstairs, urging Joey and Angie to retreat to buy some time. Onlookers started breaching the perimeter, scrambling for cash on the ground. Joey hurriedly scrambled to pack up their belongings and wipe out every trace they had left behind. Ultimately, the security personnel still made their way to the vault, and upon noticing the lights turning on, Angie hurriedly fled towards the ceiling, with the security team remaining completely unaware of any irregularities. The supervisor hurried to enter the code to access the vault, totally unaware that Joey was watching all alone from the ceiling. Joey jotted down the code on his arm and only relaxed when he confirmed everything was in order. With so many factors at play, the security system was all set and on high alert, ready for action. At this very point, Joey and Angie had everything all set and ready to go. If you loved this twist, don't forget to hit subscribe and support us in sharing more epic stories.